Mama, please. Just let me explain.
Explain what? The $58,000? Or the house you stole while I was babysitting your child for free?
I didn't. It wasn't. You don't understand what happened.
Oh, I understand perfectly. I have every document, every forged signature, every dollar you took from me.
How did you?
30 years, baby. You really thought I wouldn't find it?
Mama, I'm your daughter.
You were my daughter. Now, you are defendant number one. $58,250? That is how much I gave my only daughter over 4 years. And she did not even invite me to the baby shower. I found out the same way you always find out when your family has already decided you do not matter. Scrolling through my phone on a Saturday morning, and there they were. Photo after photo loading on my screen. Every family member I had ever loved, standing in a private dining room with linen tablecloths and a 3-tier cake and champagne glasses raised high. My daughter Vanessa in a fitted dress I had never seen. Her husband Derek in a suit jacket. The man who told me every single month that his landscaping business was barely breaking, even was toasting with champagne in a luxury restaurant. Every person in that room had been invited, every single one, except me. But here's the part that will keep you listening. That baby shower was not the betrayal. That was just the crack in the wall. Because when I started pulling at that crack, what I found behind it was so much worse than being left off a guest list. My daughter and her husband had not just been taking my money. They had taken my house, the house my husband Robert and I built together over 30 years. $285,000 in equity signed away with my forged signature on documents I never saw. They did it while smiling in my kitchen, picking up their $850 every month and dropping off my granddaughter Maya for free babysitting 4 days a week. And they had no idea that the woman they were stealing from had spent 30 years catching exactly this kind of thing for a living. My name is Claudette Morrow. I am 68 years old. For 30 years, I was a billing supervisor at St. Francis Memorial Hospital. 30 years of tracking every dollar that moved through that system, catching discrepancies that doctors and administrators missed, making numbers tell the truth. When I retired, they gave me a plaque that said the woman who never let a penny slip. My daughter forgot that part. But let me take you back to the woman I was before I found out, so you understand what they did to her and why it cost them everything. Robert and I bought our lot in 1987 when the neighborhood was still dirt roads and possibility. We laid every plan together, saved every paycheck, watched that house rise from foundation to front porch. By the time he passed 6 years ago, the mortgage was paid in full. He left me with that house, a pension, Social Security, and the kind of quiet pride that comes from knowing you did everything right. The house still smelled like him some mornings, sawdust and coffee and the faint sweetness of the pipe tobacco he gave up 20 years ago, but somehow left behind in the walls. His reading chair in the corner of the living room, his tools in the garage, organized the way only a man who loved order would arrange them. Every room held a piece of our life, and every room reminded me that I was the one left to protect it. After Robert died, I put all of myself into Vanessa, my only child. She married Derek Palmer 2 years before her father passed, and I told myself that at least she would not be alone in this world. When she called me 3 months after the funeral and said they were struggling with the mortgage, I did not hesitate. $850 a month. That is what she said they needed to keep the house. I did the math in my head the way I had done math my entire career. My pension and Social Security brought in $2,400 a month. $850 was over 35% of everything I had. But Vanessa was my daughter, my only daughter, and family takes care of family. That is what Mama taught me before she died alone in a county hospital because none of her other children came. I swore I would never let that happen to mine, so I sent the money. Every single month, like clockwork, I set up the transfer at the bank and watched $850 leave my account on the first of every month. I did not complain. I did not ask questions. When Derek said the landscaping business was almost profitable, I believed him. When Vanessa said they just needed a little more time, I gave it. When the car broke down and they needed $6,200, I pulled it from savings. When Derek needed $4,800 for business startup costs, I wrote the check. When Maya was born and they could not afford the crib, the stroller, the car seat, the diapers, the formula, I covered all of it. $3,900 in the first year alone, $850 a month for 51 months, $43,350. Add the car, the business costs, the baby supplies, $58,250. Nearly 2 full years of my income handed over 1 month at a time while I ate whatever was on sale and patched the tear in my winter coat with duct tape because $60 for a new one felt like $60 Vanessa might need. I canceled my prescription for the good arthritis medication because the generic was $40 cheaper and that $40 could buy formula. I stopped going to the salon. I stopped eating out. I stopped doing anything that cost money because every time I spent $1 on myself, I heard Mama's voice saying, family first, Claudette, always family first. And I was not just sending money. 4 days a week, I drove 40 minutes each way to watch Maya so Vanessa could work and Derek could run his business. I never asked for gas money. I was grateful for every hour with that baby because Maya was the reason I got up in the morning. She was the only person in my life whose face lit up without conditions when I walked through the door. But there were cracks I should have seen. Vanessa only called when she needed something. I could not remember the last time my phone rang, and it was my daughter just wanting to know how I was doing. Derek barely spoke to me. He would leave without saying goodbye and come home scrolling through his phone, barely grunting hello. When I asked about the business, Vanessa changed the subject. When I asked if they were doing better financially, she sighed and said, Mama, you know how it is. And I let it go because pushing felt like risking the only thing I had left. That was the lie I lived inside. If I kept giving, kept sacrificing, kept being the good mother who never complained, they would keep me close. They would keep bringing Maya. Needing me was close enough to loving me. And after watching my own mother die alone, surrounded by nothing but hospital beige and the sound of machines, I had decided a long time ago that I would pay any price to avoid that ending. So I paid. Month after month, I paid. That is the woman I was. On the Saturday morning, I picked up my phone and saw those baby shower photos. A woman who had given $58,250, 4 years of free childcare, and every ounce of dignity she could spare, sitting alone in the house she built with her dead husband, finding out from social media that there was no chair for her at her own granddaughter's welcome party. I scrolled through every photo. Vanessa's sister-in-law was there. Derek's mother, Brenda, was there, grinning in the front row. Cousins I had not seen in years, friends from Vanessa's job and the venue. I stopped scrolling and stared at that photo for a long time. 30 years of billing supervision does something to your brain. You cannot look at a scene without calculating its cost. The venue alone was at least $2,000 for a party that size. The cake, the flowers, the catering, add the dress, add the champagne. I was looking at a $5,000 or $6,000 event thrown by two people who told me every month they could not make their mortgage without my $850. The numbers did not add up. They had never added up, but I had never let myself do the math on their life the way I did the math on mine. I had been so busy counting my own sacrifices that I never stopped to count their spending. Where did the money come from? If Derek's business was barely breaking even and Vanessa's paycheck could not cover their bills, who paid for the champagne? Who paid for the 3-tier cake? And why, in a room full of family, was there no chair for me? I set the phone down. My hands were steady, but something behind my ribs had gone very still. Not sad, not angry yet, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes right before you start asking questions you cannot take back. 2 days later, I was pulling weeds in my garden when Miss Lorraine Avery came up the sidewalk. Miss Lorraine was 78 years old, sharp as a box cutter. and had worked as a county clerk for 32 years before she retired. She knew more about public records than most lawyers, and she was the kind of neighbor who noticed everything and said nothing unless it mattered. She stopped at my fence and leaned on it the way she always did when she had something to say. "Claudette, baby, I've been meaning to ask you something." "Go ahead, Miss Lorraine. You selling your house?" I looked up from the weeds. "Selling my house? No, ma'am. Why would I sell my house?" She tilted her head the way she did when she was deciding how much to say. "Well, I was down at the county records office last month helping my niece with some property tax business, and I saw a Palmer in there filing paperwork. Property paperwork on this address." I stood up slowly. "What kind of property paperwork?" "Deed transfer, looked like." I only caught a glance, but I know a deed filing when I see one. 32 years, baby. I processed 1,000 of them. She paused and looked at me with those clear, careful eyes. "If you are not selling, Claudette, then somebody is filing papers on your house without telling you, and that is something you need to look into." I stood in my garden with dirt on my gloves and the sun warm against my back, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. Property paperwork on this address. A Palmer filing papers on the house Robert and I built together, the house that was paid off, the house that was mine. "Baby, you did not know about this, did you?" "No, ma'am," I said. "I did not. Then you need to go look it up today, right now, because if somebody transferred your deed without your signature, that is not a misunderstanding, Claudette. That is a crime." She told me exactly how, the county website, the parcel number, where to search, what to look for, and step by step, the way a woman who spent 3 decades processing those filings would know. I thanked her. I went inside. I washed my hands slowly, watching the garden dirt swirl down the drain. Then I sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where I had written out every check to Vanessa and Derek for 4 years, the same table where Robert and I had signed our original mortgage. I opened my laptop. My hands were steady the way they used to be steady at the hospital when I found a number that did not belong. I had spent 30 years finding discrepancies that other people missed. If someone had filed papers on my house without telling me, I was going to find out exactly what they had done, and whoever did it had no idea I was looking. The county records website loaded slow, the way government pages always do. I typed in my address, the one I had memorized for 30 years, the one Robert and I picked out when the street was still dirt and the oak tree in the front yard was barely taller than me. I clicked search and waited. The result came up in a single line: property transfer recorded. Grantee Vanessa Morrow Palmer and Derek A. Palmer, instrument power of attorney, filed 11 weeks ago. I read it again, then I read it a third time because my eyes had to be lying to me. My house, the house Robert and I built with a 30-year mortgage we paid off 8 years early. The house where I raised my daughter, where I rocked my granddaughter, where I buried my face in Robert's pillow for 6 months after the funeral because it still smelled like him. That house now had someone else's name on the deed, and the instrument was a power of attorney I never signed. My hands went still on the keyboard. The kitchen was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the clock Robert had mounted above the stove, our first Christmas in this house. I sat there for what felt like an hour, but was probably 3 minutes, staring at the screen, watching the words rearrange themselves into something I could not undo. $285,000. That was what this house was worth. That was what my daughter had taken from me without asking, without telling, without a single tremor in her voice. All those Wednesdays when she dropped off Maya and kissed my cheek and said, "Love you, Mama." I pressed my palms flat on the table until they stopped shaking. Then I did what 30 years of billing work had taught me to do when the numbers didn't add up. I pulled the thread. I clicked on the document image. There it was. A power of attorney form with my name printed at the top and a signature at the bottom that looked close to mine but was not mine. I knew my own handwriting the way I knew my own face. The loops on the C were wrong. The tail on the W was too short. Someone had practiced my signature and gotten close, but Close is not the same as real. And there, at the bottom of the page, was a notary stamp. Brenda Palmer, licensed notary public. Derek's mother had notarized a forged document to steal my home. I did not cry. I did not scream. Something inside me went very quiet, like a machine powering down before it reboots into a different mode entirely. I saved the document to my desktop. Then I opened my phone, took a screenshot of the county records page, and emailed both files to myself. Then I emailed them again to a second address I had set up years ago for medical records. 3 copies, 3 locations. Because if 30 years in billing had taught me anything, it was this. Paper disappears, but copies survive. I closed the laptop and sat in the silence for a long time. The oak tree outside the window threw shadows across the kitchen floor. Robert's clock ticked steady. And somewhere across town, my daughter was living in a house I was still helping her pay for, while she had already taken the one thing I had left. I was done being in the dark, but I was not ready to step into the light. Not yet. Not until I knew exactly how deep this went. I needed someone who could see what I could not. Someone who could pull the threads I could not reach from a kitchen table with a 10-year-old laptop. I needed Terrence. Terrence Morrow was my brother Leon's son. 31 years old, worked in information technology for a hospital system in Richmond, sharp as a scalpel, and the only person in this family who had ever called me just to ask how I was doing. He drove down once a month to check on the house, fix whatever needed fixing, and eat whatever I cooked. He never asked for money, not once in 31 years. I called him that evening. Auntie, what's wrong? He could hear it in my voice before I said a word. Terrence, I need you to come down this weekend, and I need you to bring your laptop. He did not ask why. He just said, I will be there Saturday morning. That was Thursday. I had 2 days to keep my face straight. Friday, Vanessa called about dropping off Maya. Her voice was honey and butter, the way it always was when she needed something. Mama, can you keep Maya tomorrow? Derek has a business meeting and I have errands. Business meeting for a landscaping company with no trucks, no employees, and no customers I had ever seen. Of course, baby, I said. Bring her over whenever you're ready. I held Maya on my hip that afternoon and read her the same picture book 3 times while Vanessa's car sat in my driveway for 40 minutes because she was on the phone. I did not know who she was talking to, but I watched her through the window, laughing, relaxed, not a care in the world. She had no idea I had already seen the deed. No idea I had already saved the forged power of attorney. No idea that the mother she thought was too old and too trusting to check was already building a case. I kissed Maya's forehead and thought, I am doing this for both of us. Saturday morning, Terrence pulled into the driveway at 8:15. He sat up at the kitchen table with 2 laptops, a portable hard drive, and a look on his face that told me he had already guessed this was serious. I laid it all out. The baby shower, the county records, the forged power of attorney, Brenda Palmer's notary stamp. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Auntie, I need to pull your credit report. If they forged the power of attorney, they might have used it for more than just the deed. Go ahead. He had the report in 20 minutes, 3 pages. The first page looked normal. My credit cards, my pension deposits, my utilities. The second page was where the ground opened up. 2 personal loans, one for $18,000, one for $11,000, both taken out in the last 14 months using the same power of attorney. A credit card with a $5,000 limit, opened 9 months ago, already maxed out. I never applied for any of them. Terrence turned the screen toward me. Auntie, that is $34,000 in debt in your name. Someone used that power of attorney to open these accounts. $34,000 on top of the $58,250 I had already given them out of my own pocket, on top of the $285,000 house they had already taken. I sat there doing the math the way I had done math for 30 years in that billing office, column by column, line by line, watching the total climb like a fever. $377,250. That was the number. That was what my daughter and her husband had taken, stolen, or leveraged from the woman who had given up grocery money to keep their lights on. Terrence was already copying files. Auntie, I am saving everything: the credit report, the loan documents, the deed transfer, the notary record. I am also going to pull Derek's social media. If he has been spending money he claims not to have, it will show. He worked for 3 hours. I made him lunch and watched him over the top of my coffee cup. This boy who had grown into a man I could trust with my life. By the time he was done, he had a folder with 47 files, screenshots of Derek's Instagram showing new furniture, new clothes, a weekend trip to Atlantic City, screenshots of Vanessa's Facebook showing Maya in designer outfits at the baby shower that cost more than my monthly income, and a banking record he had found through a public business filing that showed Derek's so-called landscaping company had a savings account with a balance of $87,000. $87,000 sitting in an account tied to a business that did not exist, while I ate oatmeal for dinner 3 nights a week so I could send them $850 a month. Terrence looked at me across the table. Auntie, you need a lawyer. Not next week. Now. I know, I said. I already have a name. Attorney Gloria Hawkins had an office on Broad Street, 2nd floor, above a barbershop. She specialized in elder law. I knew her name because Miss Lorraine had mentioned her 2 years ago when a woman from Greater Hope had her pension checks redirected by her grandson. I called Monday morning and had an appointment by Tuesday afternoon. Gloria Hawkins was a woman who wore reading glasses on a chain around her neck and kept a gavel-shaped paperweight on her desk that said justice delayed is justice denied. She did not smile when I sat down. She did not make small talk. She opened the folder Terrence had prepared, spread the documents across her desk, and read for 12 minutes without saying a word. Then she took off her glasses and looked at me. Mrs. Morrow, you have a case for criminal fraud, forgery, identity theft, and elder financial abuse. The forged power of attorney alone is a federal offense. The fraudulent loans are identity theft, and the deed transfer without your knowledge or consent is property theft. She said it the way a doctor says cancer. Matter of fact, no sugarcoating. The diagnosis was clear, and the treatment had to start immediately. I need you to not confront them, she said. Do not tell Vanessa. Do not tell Derek. Do not change your routine. We are going to file with the FBI and request an emergency deed reversal, but I need time to build the full case. Can you keep your composure? I have been keeping my composure for 4 years, I told her. A few more weeks will not be a problem. She almost smiled at that. I went home and picked up Maya from Vanessa on Wednesday as if nothing had changed. Handed over the $850 on the first of the month the way I always did. Smiled at Derek when he walked past me without speaking. Cooked Sunday dinner and set a place for Vanessa, who did not come. I played the part of the woman they thought I was, the quiet, trusting, slightly foolish mother who would never think to check. But every night after Maya went home, I sat at that kitchen table and organized the evidence. Terrence had set up a secure cloud folder. Gloria's paralegal was building the timeline, and I was doing what I had done every day for 30 years, following the money. They had no idea what was coming, but I did not know yet how far they were willing to go to keep me quiet. 3 weeks after I hired Gloria, the letter arrived. Vanessa and Derek had filed a petition for emergency guardianship. The grounds: cognitive decline, erratic financial behavior, and inability to manage personal affairs. Attached to the petition was a psychiatric evaluation signed by a Dr. Raymond Fenton, stating that I exhibited signs of age-related dementia and recommending immediate appointment of a legal guardian. I had never met Dr. Raymond Fenton. I had never been examined by Dr. Raymond Fenton. I had never been in the same room as Dr. Raymond Fenton. My daughter was not just stealing my house and my money. She was trying to steal my mind. I sat on the edge of my bed with that letter in my hands and felt something shift in my chest. Not breaking, hardening, like wet clay going into a kiln. What came out was not the same as what went in. The Claudette who had handed over $850 every month, who had driven 80 minutes round trip 4 days a week for free childcare, who had swallowed every dismissal and every cold shoulder because family takes care of family. that Claudette was still in there, but she was no longer running things. I called Gloria. They filed for guardianship, I said. I know. I got the notification 20 minutes ago. They are also using a psychiatrist who submitted an evaluation without ever meeting you. That is medical fraud. What do? We do exactly what we have been doing, she said. We document everything. We let them think they are winning. And when the hearing comes, we walk in with every receipt, every forged signature, every fraudulent loan, and every dollar they ever took. They want to prove you are incompetent. We are going to prove they are criminals. I hung up the phone and looked out the window at the oak tree Robert and I had planted the year Vanessa was born. It was taller than the house now. Its roots went deeper than anything they could pull up. So did mine. That night, I copied every document to a flash drive and mailed it to Terrence with a note that said, "If anything happens to me, give this to Gloria Hawkins." Then I made my coffee, sat on the porch in Robert's chair, and watched the streetlights come on one by one. They thought I was a confused old woman who would fold under pressure. They had filed papers to cage me. They had hired a doctor to lie about my mind. They had forged my name, stolen my home, and drained my savings. And they still believed I did not know, but I knew everything, and I was not finished. 3 days after the guardianship petition arrived, Vanessa called to say she was dropping Maya off early. Something about a business meeting Derek had across town. I said, "Of course, baby. Bring her by." Same voice I always used. Same smile she could hear through the phone. Maya was asleep when they pulled up. Derek carried her inside without looking at me, set her on the couch, and walked back out. But Vanessa lingered in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, voice low. She thought I had gone upstairs for the crib blanket. I had not gone upstairs. I was standing in the hallway just past the door frame, phone in my hand, voice memo recording, the way Gloria taught me, always recording in your own home, one-party consent. Vanessa laughed, that small, careless laugh she saved for when she thought no one important was listening. "She's going to die in that house anyway," she said. "We might as well have it now while it's still worth something." A pause. Then Vanessa again. "Derek filed the papers months ago, and she still hasn't noticed. By the time the guardianship goes through, we'll have the listing up before Thanksgiving. Cash out, move to Charlotte. She'll be in a facility somewhere signing whatever they put in front of her." Another laugh. "Girl, she thinks I come over here because I love her. I come over here because I need a free babysitter and $850 a month." Silence. Not the silence of a quiet house, the silence of something dying. I stood in that hallway with my back against the wall Robert had painted sage green the summer before he passed. My hand did not shake. My breath did not catch. Something inside me went very still, the way water goes still right before it freezes solid. She's going to die in that house anyway. 6 words. That is all it took. Not the forged deed, not the stolen credit, not the $34,000 in loans with my name on them. Those were crimes. This was the truth. What my daughter thought of me when no one was watching. An obstacle with a heartbeat. A house with legs. Something to outlast, then liquidate. I pressed stop on the recording. Saved it. Emailed it to Gloria, to Terrence, and to myself. Then I walked upstairs, got the crib blanket, and came back down with the same tired grandmother smile. Vanessa was off the phone, leaning against the counter, scrolling through her messages. "Thanks, Mama," she said without looking up. "We'll be back by 7. Take your time, baby." She kissed Maya's forehead on the way out. The door closed. I locked it behind her. I sat down at the kitchen table, looked at the oak tree through the window, the one I planted the year she was born, and I let the last thread snap. The daughter I raised was dead. Not gone, not lost, not confused. Dead. The woman who had just stood in my kitchen laughing about my death while her child slept on my couch was someone I did not know, someone I did not owe, someone I would not protect. I did not cry. What I felt was not grief, and it was not rage. It was the sound a door makes when it locks from the inside and you throw away the key. Permanent, clean, done. I called Terrence that evening. "I need you to find Derek's storage unit," I said. "The monthly charge on his business account. $185 going back 14 months. Terrence found it by morning. Unit 47 at a facility off Route 9, registered under Derek's landscaping company, the one that had never landscaped a single yard. Gloria got Detective Anita Hobbs on the phone that same afternoon. Financial Crimes Division. She had been waiting for enough to justify a warrant. The recording tipped the scale. They opened that unit 2 days later. Detective Hobbs described it to me in Gloria's office. $43,000 in luxury goods, handbags, electronics, designer shoes still in boxes, 14 months of purchases made with credit cards opened in my name, shipped to a unit I had never seen, stockpiled for a life that was never theirs to build. $377,250. That was the full number now. Everything they had taken, stolen, forged, hidden, and stacked in a storage locker like I was already in the ground. I wrote that number on a piece of paper and taped it to my refrigerator. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Gloria laid everything across her conference table that Friday. 47 files organized by category, the forged power of attorney with Brenda Palmer's notary stamp, the fraudulent loans, the hidden savings account, Derek's filings for a company that did not exist, the bank transfers, the baby shower photos, the storage unit inventory, and the recording. My daughter's voice, casual and laughing, planning my death and her payday in the same breath. Claudette, Gloria said, I have practiced elder law for 22 years. This is one of the most documented cases I have ever seen. Restraining order filed, accounts frozen, deed challenged before the court, Detective Hobbs coordinating with the federal prosecutor, Dr. Fenton flagged with the medical board. She folded her hands on the gavel, paperweight. The guardianship hearing is in 11 days. They think that hearing is their weapon. It is ours. Every lie gets exposed under oath. They are walking into their own sentencing and they do not even know it. What do you need from me? I asked. Show up, tell the truth, be exactly who you are. I drove home through streets I had driven for 30 years, past the hospital where I worked billing for 3 decades, catching every discrepancy, every dollar that did not add up, past the church where Robert and I got married, past the elementary school where I walked Vanessa every morning, her hand in mine, her voice saying, Mama, will you always be here? Always, baby, always. I parked in my driveway, sat in Robert's chair on the porch, looked at the oak tree, 40 years old now, roots so deep nothing could pull it down. 11 days. Everything was in place, the evidence, the lawyer, the detective, the court date, the truth. I had spent 4 years giving everything I had to people who saw me as something to use up and throw away. I had smiled through it. I had written the checks. I had kissed my granddaughter goodnight in a house they were trying to steal out from under me while I slept. That was finished. I was not angry. I was not sad. I was ready. And in 11 days, every single one of them would find out what happens when you underestimate a woman who spent 30 years making numbers tell the truth. The courtroom was half empty at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. By 9:15, it would not be. I walked through those double doors the way I had walked into the billing office for 30 years, shoulders back, files organized, ready to make the numbers tell the truth. Gloria Hawkins was at our table, 47 evidence folders stacked in order. She nodded once. That was enough. Vanessa and Derek sat across the aisle. Vanessa wore a modest navy dress, nothing like the designer clothes in the baby shower photos. She had dressed for sympathy. Derek adjusted his tie every 15 seconds. Their attorney leaned over and whispered something. They both nodded. They had no idea what was coming. Judge Carolyn Pace entered and opened her folder. We are here on the matter of guardianship petition filed by Vanessa Morrow Palmer and Derek Palmer regarding Claudette Morrow. Petitioners allege mental incompetence and request full legal guardianship. She paused. Petitioners may present their case. Their attorney painted me as a confused widow, spiraling into paranoia, isolating herself from the family that loved her under the influence of strangers. Vanessa testified first. She cried, beautiful, convincing tears. My mother has always been my rock, she said, her voice cracking. Watching her decline has been the hardest thing I've ever been through. Gloria stood for cross-examination. Her voice was level. Surgical. Mrs. Palmer, when was the last time you visited your mother without asking for money? Silence. Can you name a single visit in 4 years that did not involve a financial request? We talked about lots of things. Can you give me a specific date? Vanessa's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Is it true your mother paid $850 a month toward your mortgage for 51 months? She offered to help. Is it true that totals $58,250? I do not know the exact number. I do. Gloria placed the first folder on the evidence table. Exhibit A, 51 months of bank transfers, $850 each, documented to the penny. Derek's tie adjusting stopped. Exhibit B, county property records showing the deed to my client's home, valued at $285,000, transferred into the names of Derek and Vanessa Palmer. My client never signed these documents. Vanessa's jaw tightened. Derek leaned toward his attorney. Exhibit C, a power of attorney bearing my client's forged signature, notarized by Brenda Palmer, the respondent's mother, a licensed notary who notarized a forgery for her own son. The judge's eyes moved from the document to Derek. He looked at the table. Exhibit D, my client's credit report. 2 loans and 1 credit card opened in her name without consent. Total unauthorized debt, $34,000. Purchases traced to a storage unit registered under Derek Palmer's fictitious business name. Derek went pale. Exhibit E. Detective Anita Hobbs executed a search warrant on that storage unit. $43,000 in luxury goods, handbags, electronics, designer shoes, all purchased with credit lines fraudulently opened in my client's name. The courtroom had filled. I could feel people leaning forward. Exhibit F, Gloria's voice dropped. The room went still. A voice recording made in my client's own home. 1-party consent state. She pressed play. Vanessa's voice filled the courtroom. Clear, casual, cruel. She thinks I come over here because I love her. I come over here because I need a free babysitter and $850 a month. Then the second part. She is going to die in that house anyway. We might as well have it now while it is still worth something. Silence. Not courtroom silence. The silence after something breaks that cannot be repaired. Vanessa's face drained white. Her hands gripped the table edge. Derek stared straight ahead like a man watching his own sentencing and knowing it. Their attorney asked for a recess. Judge Pace denied it. Respondent may testify. I stood, walked to the stand, placed my hands flat on the rail. Steady. Gloria guided me through the evidence. I confirmed every document, every transfer, every forged signature that was not mine. Then she asked the question I had been waiting for. Mrs. Morrow, why did you stop supporting your daughter financially? I looked across the courtroom. Vanessa would not meet my eyes because I spent 30 years catching every discrepancy in every file that crossed my desk. And when I finally turned that skill on my own family, I found the worst fraud I had ever seen. I paused. My daughter did not need my help. She needed my house. She needed my name on her debt. She needed me confused and quiet and grateful for the privilege of being used, but I am not confused. I was loyal. There is a difference. In every dollar, every lie, every word she said when she thought I could not hear, it is all documented, every single one. The courtroom was silent. Vanessa's tears were gone. What was left on her face was fear. Judge Pace reviewed the evidence for 40 minutes. When she returned, the courtroom was standing room only. This court has reviewed 47 exhibits, professional psychiatric evaluation, financial records spanning 4 years, a recorded statement by the petitioner, and testimony from Detective Hobbs of the Financial Crimes Division. She removed her glasses. The petition for guardianship is denied. She looked directly at Vanessa and Derek. What this court has seen is not a family concerned about a parent's well-being. It is a calculated, sustained campaign of elder financial exploitation, identity theft, and fraud executed against a woman whose only crime was loving her daughter too generously. She paused. This court refers all evidence to the district attorney and the federal prosecutor for immediate criminal action. Detective Hobbs stood from the gallery. 2 officers moved to the aisle. Derek Palmer was arrested in the courtroom, handcuffs in front of the judge, in front of Vanessa, in front of me. The charges came within the week, the sentencing 3 months later. Derek Palmer, forgery, identity theft, elder fraud, fraudulent property documents, 8 years federal prison, $58,250 plus $285,000 in restitution. Deed fully reversed. $40,000 in seized goods forfeited. Vanessa Morrow Palmer. Elder financial abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, false guardianship petition. 5 years. $58,250 restitution. Permanent loss of inheritance rights. No unsupervised contact with her own child. Grandparent visitation awarded to me. Brenda Palmer, accessory to fraud, abuse of notary authority, perjury, notary license permanently revoked, 3 years probation, $10,000 fine. Dr. Fenton, fraudulent psychiatric evaluation filed without examining me in person. Medical license suspended pending full review. Evaluation struck from the record. Named in a civil suit. 4 people, 4 sentences, every single one named. When the gavel came down the final time, I did not stand. I did not cry. I did not look at Vanessa. I sat in that courtroom chair and breathed. One long, slow breath. The kind you hold for 4 years without knowing it. The kind that fills your whole chest when it finally comes. Gloria put her hand on my shoulder. She did not need to say anything. Outside, the sun was directly overhead. I stood on the courthouse steps and felt the warmth on my face. Somewhere behind me, Derek was being led to a transport vehicle. Somewhere inside, Vanessa was learning that her life as she knew it was over. I thought about the little girl who once held my hand in the elementary school parking lot and asked, "Mama, will you always be here?" I am still here. She is the one who left. The news about the others came in pieces over the following weeks. Brenda Palmer's notary license was permanently revoked on a Tuesday afternoon. 3 years probation, $10,000 fine, 30 years of stamping documents, and she used that authority to forge the name of a 68-year-old woman who had never done a thing to her. Dr. Fenton's medical license was suspended pending full review by the state board. His fraudulent competency evaluation, the one he wrote without ever sitting in a room with me or asking me a single question, was struck from the record entirely. I did not follow up on what came next for him. I had spent enough of my life keeping track of other people's consequences. Gloria called me the morning the deed reversal was finalized. "Claudette," she said, and I could hear something warm in her voice, something beyond professional satisfaction. "Your house is yours again. Your name, your deed, recorded this morning at the county clerk's office." I thanked her. I hung up, and then I sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where I had written every check, where Robert and I had signed our original mortgage, where I had opened my laptop and found the truth that changed everything. And I cried, not the way I thought I would, not loud, not dramatic. It came up from somewhere deep and low, a place I had sealed shut the morning I found the deed transfer and decided to fight instead of fall apart. 4 years of swallowed grief, 51 months of writing checks and smiling through the ache. The courtroom where I watched Derek's hands go into handcuffs and felt nothing because I could not afford to feel anything yet. It all came out now, quietly, like water finding its level after the dam gives way. I pressed both palms flat on the table until they stopped trembling. I breathed the way Robert used to tell me to breathe when the world got too heavy. Slow in, slow out. The clock above the stove ticked the way it always had, steady and unhurried, keeping time the way Robert kept time. I sat there until the tears slowed, until my chest unclenched, until something that had been wound tight for 4 years finally loosened and let go. That Sunday, Pearl Washington and 5 women from the Wisdom Circle were waiting for me in the fellowship hall after service. I had not told anyone I was coming, but Pearl knew the way Pearl always knew, the way women who have survived their own fires can smell the smoke on someone else. "Come sit down, baby," Pearl said. She pulled out a chair like it had been waiting for me all morning. Cora Jenkins set a plate in front of me before I could speak. Fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread, church food, healing food. The kind of plate a woman makes when she knows words are not enough. "You do not have to talk," Cora said quietly. "You just have to eat." So I ate, and they sat with me, not asking, not pushing, not filling the silence with advice, just present. Pearl hummed something low and familiar, a hymn I remembered from my mother's kitchen. Miss Lorraine arrived late, still in her church hat, and squeezed my shoulder without a word as she sat beside me. These women had testified for me. They had shown up in that courtroom and told a judge what they saw. They had not done it for money or obligation. They had done it because that is what family does, and they had become mine. "You know what my grandmother used to say?" Pearl said after a while. She said the Lord does not always remove the storm, but he will send you people who know how to build a boat. I looked around that table at the women who had built mine. Something shifted in my chest, not breaking, not hardening, softening, like soil after a long rain, finally ready to grow something new. I heard later that Vanessa was transferred to a federal facility downstate. Derek started his 8-year sentence on a Monday. The storage unit was emptied, $40,000 in luxury goods forfeited to the government. His hidden savings account was seized. The house they had tried to steal was back in my name, recorded at the same county clerk's office where Miss Lorraine had first seen a Palmer filing papers that did not belong to them. I did not visit. I did not write. There was nothing left to say. By the time the azaleas bloomed that spring, the fraudulent accounts had been closed and the unauthorized debt cleared from my credit report. $34,000 in loans I never signed for. Erase. The restitution payments began arriving, deposited directly into my account, and I let them accumulate without counting them the way I used to count every dollar that left. I was done with that kind of math. My pension came every month the way it always had, $2,400. But now every cent of it was mine. No automatic transfers to Vanessa, no emergency checks to Derek, no quiet subtraction of $850 that left me patching my winter coat with tape and choosing the cheap arthritis pills. I bought the good medication. I bought a new coat. I fixed the loose board on the porch steps that Robert had been meaning to get to before he got sick. The garden came back to life because I finally had time to tend it. Tomatoes along the south fence, marigolds in the beds Robert built, herbs by the kitchen door, basil and rosemary and the lavender Miss Lorraine brought over in a coffee can. Wednesday nights I was back at Bible study. Saturdays I painted with the Wisdom Circle women at Pearl's kitchen table. Cora taught me her mother's peach cobbler, and I taught her Robert's sweet potato pie, and we decided both recipes were perfect and neither one needed fixing. The house settled around me the way it always had. Robert's clock ticking above the stove, his reading chair in the living room corner, the oak tree in the front yard, 40 years old now, roots too deep to pull up, standing where it had always stood. I learned something in those quiet months that I could not have learned in the noise of the fight. Loyalty is not a debt you pay to people who share your blood. It is a gift you give to people who earn it. And the people who earn it are rarely the ones who demand it. On a Saturday morning in October, I was sitting on the porch in Robert's chair with my coffee when I heard a car pull into the driveway. The social worker brought Maya to the door the way she did every other weekend now, court-ordered visitation that no one could take away. Maya was 2.5, and she had her mother's eyes, but none of her mother's coldness. She came up the porch steps on unsteady legs, arms out, calling the only word that mattered. "Nana!" I picked her up and held her against my chest, feeling her small hands grab the collar of my shirt the way children do when they have found the person they were looking for. The oak tree threw shade across the yard. The coffee was still warm. Miss Lorraine waved from her garden next door, and I waved back with my free hand, the one that was not holding everything I had almost lost. I thought about the woman who sat on the edge of her bed, scrolling through baby shower photos, watching every person she loved celebrate without her. That woman had given $58,250 in 4 years of her life trying to buy a seat at a table that was never meant for her. She is gone now, and in her place is a woman sitting on her own porch, in her own chair, holding her granddaughter in the morning light, owing nothing to anyone. My name is Claudette Morrow. I am 69 years old, and for the first time in longer than I can remember, I am home.